Welcome to Wordsmythe Screenwriting Essentials. This is Chapter 2, and we're going to be talking today about genre. What is genre? Well, one of the easiest explanations for what genre is when you're talking about movies with your friends and they say, oh, you should really go see XYZ. And you'll say, well, you know, what is it? And they'll go, oh, it's a comedy. Or, oh, it's got Bruce Willis in it, and it is action-adventure. So genre is a way of categorizing stories, which is really useful to us as an audience, because there are some days when you really want to see an action-adventure film because it really gets your adrenaline going and it's fun. Or there are some days that you just want to see something sweet. You don't want to go and see people get bludgeoned and stabbed. Ugh. Okay, personally, I never want to go see that. But so genre helps us decide kind of what kind of film it is we're going to see. It sets up expectations in your audience. And one of the things that I want to talk about, why is it important? Well, genre is important on a number of different levels. First of all, it's important as an audience member because it helps us anticipate what we're going to be seeing in the theater. And anticipation is a really key part of enjoyment. Smelling food cooking. It's not as actually good as eating it, but it's part of the experience of cooking or going to a restaurant and smelling the garlic and onions wafting out from the restaurant kitchen. And it whets your appetite and it gets your juices going. Well, genre is a lot like that when you're an audience member. Genre sets up your expectations. You know that if it's a comedy, you're going to go and you're going to be entertained. And with any luck, you'll be laughing heartily by the first 10 or 15 minutes of the film. Genre is also important to you as a writer. It's important for you to recognize what genre you may be creating. Because two things. Remember, your audience is smart. You've got writing and you've got storytelling encoded in your DNA from 60,000 years of telling stories. Well, guess what? So do they. So essentially, they know all you know. And so they're going to have a certain set of expectations. If you bill your idea, your story concept, your screenplay as a comedy, they're going to expect a laugh. If you bill it as a drama, it's a far wider category, but they suspect that there are going to be probably more emotional lows in a drama than there may be highs. And so if it's action-adventure, they have a certain set of expectations about that too. And so you as a writer need to know what their expectations are. And if you create a structure for yourself before you start writing that allows you to fulfill those minimal number of things that shuts off both your left brain and your audience's left brain, you're all going to have lots of room then for creating new and interesting side trips from that story structure that we've created. So I want you to take a moment now that you've got your story idea or concept firmly in mind on paper. I want you to think about what genre you're going to be writing for, what genre your audience is going to have a certain set of expectations around. So what genre does it fit into? Can anybody off the top of their head name some genres? There's romantic comedy, dark comedy, there's action-adventure, westerns, that's amazing. Yes, hardly anybody ever thinks about westerns today. Yeah, science fiction. There's a whole different category too, children's movies, adult movies, tween movies. No one has mentioned so far, horror. Romance. Well, it's also really interesting when you start thinking about genres, there's also a category of blended genres. So romantic comedy is a blended genre. It's not a true romance film in that it's just all about boy meets girl, but it's usually about boy meets girl, falls down, breaks a leg, winds up in the hospital, she's forced to visit him, and so that's how the romance blooms. So there are blended genres as well. When Harry Met Sally, another romantic comedy. So I want you to think about what your genre is and how it's going to fit into it. And now I want to go back to scenes 2 and 3 in Monsters, Inc. And one of the things I want to make really clear is we're starting with Monsters, Inc. for a couple of different reasons. Part of it is I've seen this movie easily, I think 50 or 60 times now. And it's important for me, if I'm asking you to study a film, that you study a film that's fun. You know, it's like, it's fun, it makes you laugh, it's good writing. There are some really wonderful things that the writers did in Monsters, Inc. that is actually it's a lot of fun to point out to people. And so we're going to look at Monsters, Inc., the opening probably 15 minutes over and over and over again with a different hat on every time, with a different focus for what we're looking at. So what I would like to do right now is take a moment and look again at the opening to Monsters, Inc. with genre in mind. We're going to go back to that word signifiers, and we're going to look at it with those signifiers for our genre in mind. What is it the writers have done that is set up very early in the film that says to the audience left brain, this is what we're doing, this is the game plan, this is where we're going. Because again, with your brain and theirs, you want to give them enough information that the left brain will shut up and go, oh, okay, I get this. I know where we're going, I'm in charge, I don't have to stop and ask. So we're going to look at scene 2 and 3 again from Monsters, Inc. You at home, cue up your scene selection and look at 2 and 3 while we here in the classroom look at it as well, and we'll come back and talk about what we've seen as far as our genre perceptions as soon as we're done. Welcome back to wordsmyth.ca. This is the second chapter, and we've been talking about genre, and we've just finished watching the opening 5 minutes to Monsters, Inc. again. And partially because we were looking at it this time from the perspective of genre. How did the writers detail for us what genre we were seeing? Well, one of the things that is true in this film in particular, but in comedies in general, is that constantly you're subverting what your audience already knows. So in Monsters, Inc., you set up a world. You show the child the toys, and you think you're in a sweet little family film. You don't know where it's going from there, but you feel like you've landed. You know what it is you're seeing. And then with the appearance of the monster and some of those other subtle clues, the curtain blowing, some of the sound effects, the squeaky door, the child hiding under the covers. Essentially, you feel like maybe what you're seeing has shifted, that you've shifted into maybe a horror genre. And so the writers do that intentionally because one of the hallmarks of comedy is to keep your audience guessing. Humor comes from that element of surprise. And so they create a world, they pull the rug out from under you, and then you find yourself you're in a different world. You think you've landed there, and then 2 minutes later they pull the rug out from under you and you're in another place. And so that second reveal happens, that as the camera pulls back and reveals, the lights switch on, as the trainee monster falls on the jacks and is howling, the lights switch on. Child pops up in bed. It's not even a real child, it's a mechanical child. We reveal that we're on a sound stage, and what's going on? Where are we? It's an audition, there are trainee monsters there, and so we realize that the world that we thought we had landed in, that we were inhabiting at the opening moments of the film, is completely faux. It's not a child's bedroom at all. We're not even in a human world. Ta-da, we're in a monster world. So what the writers did continually in the first opening moments of that film is create a sense of expectation for you as the audience, and then subvert it. Sense of expectation, this is a horror movie, and then subvert it. And so what I think it's safe to say is that even though we land in the monster world, and this seems to be where the action takes place, will that be subverted eventually? I think so. So that is one of the hallmarks of comedy, is constantly setting up a sense of expectation in your audience and then surprising them, subverting that sense of expectation and keeping it moving. One of the reasons why comedies are fairly short is that it's really hard to keep that sense of momentum going endlessly. And so you'll find that often comedies tend to be a bit shorter a screenplay than especially a very heavy dramatic film. So we're going to get back to that, though, in a later chapter. One of the things that I really want you to think about is genre. And so one of the things you can do is take a moment at home and study genre. I want you to go to a DVD rental store, or if you've got a lot of DVDs on your shelf, I want you to pull out 3 or 4. And I want you to look at the opening maybe 10 or 15 minutes of those DVDs, and I want you to think about 2 things. We had talked about story idea and concept. I want you to think about what the central concept is for that film. What was the place? What was the idea that got that film going? And 2, I want you to identify the genre. What are the signifiers that set up the genre in the opening moments of the film? What are the clues that essentially the writer used to say, this is the path, this is our trajectory, this is the romantic comedy, this is the family drama that we're heading down in order to start shutting off that left side of your audience's brain. So I want you to, at home, do some home study before you go on to the next chapter. I want you to look at 3 or 4 videos, and I want you to look at the first 5 or 10 minutes of each and think about them from terms of genre and the signifiers that the writers built in order to get the audience to settle into a known place. So that's the effectiveness of genre, is that it sets up the audience so that they say, okay, we've been down this road before. I know where comedies go. I know where action-adventure films go. So it sets them up for the ride ahead. So have a look at that, and we'll come back then to chapter 3 when you're finished.